Good morning. It's Thursday, August 14th, 2014. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 42. Insert your usual episode number 42 joke here. My name is Chris. I am really glad to be back today. I am so sorry about missing yesterday. I'll try to share the details about that later on in the show. To make me feel better about missing yesterday's episode, I have assembled an outrageously great team of Mumble citizens. Universal time greeting, Mumble citizens.
Universal time greeting.
Hiya!
Jeez, Eric.
Greetings.
All right, guys. We got a great lineup of stories today. That some of them, each story I was reading is like, wow, really? This is huge. So let's start with some Google news, some Google Now news. Now, this is interesting in the light too of Apple and IBM's recent BFF-ness. Google and HP have been discussing an enterprise partnership for the past year, but little progress has been made, according to a new report. Topics have included a Nexus tablet for business with hardware encryption, as well as a version of Google Now for business data. In fact, the report says that HP also has talked to Apple about Siri for enterprise, but it was nixed recently when the IBM deal was announced. So Google needs to respond soon, or else it might find itself with Apple's new deal with IBM kind of getting locked out of the enterprise. And HP thinks that they might make a great potential partner because of their business IT market. And they think Google Now could have a huge feature set for business. Google might need access to Google's proprietary private databases and things like that, so it's not clear on how that would work. And meanwhile, HP is working on its own mobile voice search just in case the Google Now deal doesn't work out, which it's internally calling Enterprise Siri. Well, that shouldn't cause them any problems later on. It's perhaps not the best sign for a product in development when its codename refers to a rival service it's copying.
Lawsuit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then another story completely independently reported from another outlet, this one which was picked up by Digital Trends. HP wants to make a Nexus phone for the enterprise. HP reportedly wanted to partner with Google to make the Nexus smartphone specifically aimed at business users. It would have incorporated several business-centric features, such as the ability to add high-end encryption. However, HP encountered internal resistance from Google, in particular from Andy Rubin, who was in charge of Android. Rubin was replaced by Sundar Pichai in March of 2013, so there is some speculation now that this deal may be back in the works. So I was thinking about this last night, guys, and you know me, I'm all over the map when it comes to Google. I have serious privacy concerns and about the long-term collection of that data and building profiles on everybody on the internet, etc., blah, 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 blah. We all know that. However, when I started thinking about Google Now in business, and a lot of Google stuff in business, it surprisingly freaks me out a lot less. Like, as an employee, if Google was indexing my business that I worked at, and I could go to Google and say, okay, Google business, when is the status meeting for the IT group? And it would come back and go, look, Chris, the status meeting is in 15 minutes. Would you like me to add that to your calendar? And I could say yes. That would be kind of amazing. And it's not like, I feel like when they're indexing my email and they're indexing my browsing habits, what I search for, and then trying to provide me more information based on that. I mean, you're all probably pretty familiar with Google Now. It's very handy, but it's also just as equally nonsensical and not that handy. And I find myself on one time loving like the package tracking features, or you might also be interested in features. And other times I find myself thinking, this does not feel worth the actual amount of invasion of my personal privacy I'm giving them to get this feature. But for business, when it's no longer my personal privacy, the amount of expectations I have for how that tool performs change. And what I need from it becomes much more it's much more generated by the business, right? Schedules, contact information. There's infrastructure in a corporation to update a database already. HR probably updates it when you have new staff and you put their new name in there and their phone number. All this information could be fed into a local Google server running on your LAN that does a Google index of these databases through some sort of connector, I would assume, and pulls in all that information, and then it's sort of like a central AI for organizing your business. One central secretary almost. What do you guys think? Is it still crazy, Eric?
It's got potential. It's got creepiness factor, too.
Yeah.
So it's just like...
Are you more
wow,
comfortable with something like Google Now if it's at a workplace indexing work stuff than your personal life, or do you think either way it could be pretty creepy? And keep in mind, there's also the security factor here, right? If, say, Google Now is a centralized service that runs from Google and not a local landbox, and that centralized service is indexing businesses, and somehow, even though Google has great security, somehow somebody were to compromise, maybe like a Chinese firm were to compromise Google, they could discover unbelievable amounts of information about U.S. corporations.
Yeah, I was thinking intellectual property and, you know, typical business secrets that are kept by individual businesses. And then Google would have access to that information too, and say suddenly they have some notes on there about a particular product. Google goes out and patents it and says, okay, now you can't develop that product. It's ours, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's where the problem comes in.
But they don't be evil.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Rotten, though, would you want something like this where you work?
No, not really.
Really?
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily need it because we have implementations for something like this already.
Okay, Lionhead, come on. You've seen this. Corporations they don't communicate well. People get things mixed up all the time. Wouldn't it be nice just to have one impartial central database that you can speak to? And think about this. If you matched it with these Nexus devices, that either the tablet or the phone that HP wants to make. So, okay, Lionhead, picture the whole picture. You've got customized enterprise Nexus tablets with your enterprise Google Now tied into your business infrastructure. Couldn't that make a company much more efficient?
Yeah, it definitely would, and especially smaller companies. And we talked about the hacker problem and such. Google has the resources to defend much more efficiently than many smaller shops for that kind of attack. But then again, they're a bigger target, and if they get in, they get a lot more data. So yeah,
it's a give and take there. Yeah.
Honestly, I think I'd be more worried about Facebook pulling something like this than Google.
Yeah.
Because Facebook pretty much wants to literally own every piece of information you put on there.
The thing that I find to be interesting about it is Microsoft's bag, I think we all agree these days, is enterprise. That's really where their strength remains. And they have Cortana, and they have a lot of speech recognition technology. Go see the Kinect. Isn't it surprising that Microsoft hasn't gotten to this spot first? And wouldn't corporations be more comfortable with a Microsoft technology in this department, especially if it ties in with your existing Windows infrastructure, could integrate with Active Directory in your Exchange database?
Perhaps, but you got to remember also, Microsoft really, since Windows 95, they have not innovated anything on their own. They have either bought stuff or have stolen ideas from other people.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Cortana. Cortana is pretty much just that. It's Siri turned into Microsoft. You look at almost everything that Microsoft has done. They have either bought it or taken the idea and done something with it because they don't want to be left in the dark on it. I mean, Microsoft stores in the malls, those
such a ripoff.
Such a ripoff of the Apple Store.
Yeah.
You look inside of it, it's pretty much an Apple Store with Windows everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost I almost feel embarrassed for them when I walk by those.
Yeah, me too.
And they put them by the Apple stores too.
Yes. I mean, Bellevue Square Mall. They are downstairs and across from it. It's just like, really? You guys couldn't have done something original for once? Of course, that was pretty much the Ballmer era. I want to see what Nadella's going to do, if he's going to do anything original, because Ballmer was a copycat, let's just face it.
Yeah, maybe we'll see some original there. We never know. All right. Well, go ahead. Finishing thoughts. You can finish it off.
I was just going to say that Microsoft has been completely copycats for a long time, but the question was, people would want it if it was a Microsoft thing, and I would say even if it was a copy, they'd still want it. If they would trust it more with Microsoft doing it,
especially if you can run it on premise
in their environment.
Yeah, if you can run on premise and it can integrate with your existing infrastructure, there's a lot of benefits there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Google will kick their butt in gear and they'll start working on it. All right, so just while we're kind of in the mobile territory-ish, I thought it was kind of interesting. I've been noticing a lot of LTE news over the last few weeks, so I'm going to use this one story here to kind of bring it all together. So number one, AT&T will start sending LTE TV-style media broadcasts to your phone. LTE actually has the capability to have something equivalent to TV transmissions, where it's broadcast, and AT&T will be rolling that out over 2015. I see, of course, anything like this is going to be crapped up with their crap store and their crap video selection and their crap licensing. So, I mean, who really gives a crap? But I think from a technology standpoint, it's interesting, right? I mean, none of us are going to want this crap. It's all going to be overpriced. It's all tied to AT&T. It's totally bogus. I hope it fails. But I think the fact that you can do it is cool. Also, Sprint over LTE will be doing calls over data soon using what they call HD LTE, and supposedly it's going to sound amazing. T-Mobile just announced that they will be throttling users who use Usenet or torrents or other peer-to-peer software over LTE. Not too surprising there, but that came out today. And Verizon announced that it's working on a bunch of upgrades to its LTE network. So the LTE technology seems to be the wireless technology that we're actually going to stick with for a while. Hallelujah. You know, when you think about the last 7 years, right, when the first iPhone shipped, we didn't even have 3G. Remember how the first iPhone was Edge? It wasn't until they had the iPhone 3G that they even put 3G in the dumb phone. Of course, by then, Android phones were on the market with 3G. But you think about how much cellular wireless technology has changed since smartphones were introduced. They had to beef up the infrastructure and beef it up and beef it up. And
jack the prices.
Right. But the problem is this has resulted in sort of patchwork of coverage because they're spending so much time on improving the technology. Hopefully, I'm hoping that LTE gives them the breathing room to now fill in some of the coverage gaps, because LTE sounds like some seriously cool stuff, and I'm really excited to see a lot of the stuff. 2015 looks like it's going to be a big advancement for LTE across phones. Now, some of the features will require new phones. Some of these features are rumored to already be included in the next batch of phones coming out in the fall. So we'll probably start to hear about some of these new features as sort of like a product implementation, and then on the back end, they'll be using some of these advancements in LTE. All right, our next story is, well, mind-blowing. It's MonsterMind. And this story is huge in kind of two ways. Wired's been doing a lot of pieces on Snowden, and they did a really big piece that I'll be talking about in a future show, probably on Unfilter, that gave me kind of a bad feeling. Now, I'll talk about more in the future, but one of the meatiest things that came out is a revelation directly by Snowden himself to a journalist. All previous Snowden revelations have come from journalists from the batch of documents that Snowden gave them. It would now, and previously in an interview, Snowden said that it was his decision to allow those journalists to decide what to publish. However, now we have what you would call a leak directly from the man himself. Apparently, he has decided that the journalists are not getting the story out, and so he's going to talk about it directly. So in an interview with Wired, he talked about something called MonsterMind. And MonsterMind is an NSA bot that could wage cyber war automatically. So if, say, U.S. infrastructure came under attack, it would automatically launch a counterattack without human intervention. So this is from the Wired article. So the NSA whistleblower says the agency is developing a cyber defense system that would instantly and autonomously neutralize foreign cyber attacks against the U.S. and could be used to launch retaliatory strikes as well. The program, called MonsterMind, raises fresh concerns about privacy and the government's policies around offensive digital attacks. Snowden tells Wired in an extensive interview with James Bamford the algorithms would scour massive repositories of metadata and analyze them to differentiate normal network traffic from anomalous or malicious traffic. Armed with this knowledge, the NSA would instantly and automatically identify, block a foreign threat. Think of this as a digital version of the Star Wars initiative President Reagan proposed in the 1980s. Snowden suggests MonsterMind could one day be designed to return fire automatically without any human intervention. Spotting malicious attacks in this manner, Snowden describes, would say, as he says, require the NSA to collect and analyze all network traffic inflow in order to design an algorithm that could distinguish normal traffic flow from anomalous malicious traffic, i.e., you have to capture it all so you can figure out what's good versus bad for this bot to respond to. Snowden, the direct quote says, that means we would be intercepting all traffic flows. That means violating the Fourth Amendment, seizing private communications without a warrant, without probable cause or even suspicion of wrongdoing for everyone all the time. And what's also very interesting about this is Wired then went out and did some independent digging to see if they could kind of find a way to verify Snowden's claims, because otherwise, we're just taking Snowden's word for it. They found a few projects that are out in different areas, but They found one that sounds like it might be the closest match. MonsterMind sounds much like something called Plan X, the cyber warfare program run by DARPA. The 5-year, $110 million research program has several goals, not the least of which is mapping the entire internet, identifying every node to help the Pentagon spot disable targets if needed, so they can spot them and shut them down with this Plan X program. Another goal is building a system that allows the Pentagon to conduct speed-of-light attacks using predetermined and pre-programmed scenarios. Such systems would be able to spot threats automatically and launch a response. The Washington Post reported about this system 2 years ago. It is not clear if Plan X is MonsterMind or if MonsterMind even exists. The Post noted at the time that DARPA would begin accepting proposals for Plan X that summer. Snowden said MonsterMind was in the works when he left his work at the NSA contract as an NSA contractor last year. MonsterMind.
Sounds like a really interesting name for that project. You know, a couple things ran through my mind. First thing is, this doesn't already exist. The second thing is, don't attacks happen all the time?
What we're talking about really is like a nationwide intrusion detection system that would monitor financial institutions and government institutions. I don't know why we're responsible for monitoring the banks, but according to this interview, part of the system is designed to protect the banks. And I think, you know, an IDS is one thing. I think a system that goes from an IDS to a full-on automatic response. The first problem you have with that is anybody who is worth their crap at all would be proxying through multiple different locations coming from, oh, I don't know, China or Russia, even when they're actually in Brazil, right? So how does the system automatically figure that out? Say I'm an attacker and I've owned 500,000 machines in Europe. And then I launch an attack against Bank of America's buildings in downtown New York and take their websites offline. How does this system know to attack the people in Brazil and not attack people in Europe? How does it know that if I, as a person that knows how to manipulate systems and create botnets, even just to launch a denial of service attack, you would have to have huge scores of machines that would not be coming from your location. Right? That's fundamentally to generate that much traffic. It just doesn't make any sense. And hack it, even if you're hacking somebody, if you're just, trying to brute force their damn SSH login, you're not going to do that from your IP. You're not going to even try to make it look like it's coming from your country. We don't. When we are attacking other countries, we sure as hell try to cover our tracks. So how does an automated system like this work? And it just seems bogus.
It doesn't work against Tor.
It sounds like, when in the Wired article, when they said it's Star Wars all over again, it really is. It's this mythical automated defense system that could protect us from these boogeymens that we've all convinced ourselves exist out there all the time. And instead of taking rational approaches to securing our systems and protecting our systems and, just simply taking some systems off the internet altogether and maybe air-gapping them for certain things like SCADA systems that control dams and whatnot, how about maybe instead of rationalizing legislation where we do things like that, where we say, that pump that controls the water supply for the town of Marysville, that probably doesn't need to have an Ethernet jack connected to the serial adapter. Let's go ahead and disconnect that. We can go physically service that instead of having the guy out of India service it. If we just did legislation like that protected our systems, then we don't have to go off and create MonsterMind that's essentially creating a machine that can automatically attack foreign nations. This is ridiculous.
It sounds more like they're doing it just to kind of say, hey, look, we're doing something against cyber attacks.
Right, and hey, money. What a heyday.
Show me the money.
Woo, man, to be in the cyber defense industry right now. This is where the money in defense is right now. And boy, it is a heyday for some of these people.
Sounds to me like somebody just came up to them and said, hey, I've got this idea. You guys should really implement it, and here's why. And they're all these non-tech savvy bureaucrats are like, oh, we got to do that. Oh, we got to do that. Oh.
Right, and of course, a system like this is going to have an entire corporation's worth of bureaucracy around it to manage it, right? You're going to have people that are managing it, people that are setting the policies, people that are going out and finding stuff. You're going to have human intelligence and automated intelligence. You're going to have to interface with the NSA and the CIA and the FBI. I mean, it's going to be a huge freaking monster that gets bolted on to the side of our cyber defense machine that is being built right now.
And what happens when it gets hacked by? What happens when it gets hacked? And everyone finds out it runs Windows.
Turn it around on the dumb Americans. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine like some Russian hackers get in there and turn it around on us? Oh my gosh.
I think it would be a target as soon as it starts. It becomes active. It's going to be. It'll become active, and then it'll become a target immediately.
You mustn't do it. It's wrong.
What would happen if it was like a mass DDoS attack, like mega upload style?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways,
interesting.
We'll be watching for more information on MonsterMind, and it is interesting. I think that of all the publications that Greenwald has done, this hasn't come out yet, and it took a direct interview with Snowden for this to come out. And the thing is even if it's never implemented, I believe they're spending money on it. And if you read the Wired article, which I have linked in the show notes, they also talk about a couple other potential projects that it could be. I just mentioned Plan X from DARPA because that sounds like the most legitimate one. But there's actually several other projects that are being financed right now by the government that could also simply be MonsterMind. It's all in the article that I have linked in the show notes. Hey, before we get to our last story, I just wanted to mention that you could support the Tech Talk Today show and the entire Jupiter Broadcasting Network. Invest in our network by pledging over at patreon.com/today. Money raised here funds all aspects of the Jupiter Broadcasting production, from hardware, contractors, services, replacements, all kinds of like extra little expenses, travel, whatnot. Patreon.com/today. What we're trying to do is raise a considerable amount of money where we could say, okay, we could maybe hire a contractor. We could maybe build up a remote production bag, go bag, things like that. And know that in order to accomplish these things, we don't necessarily have to sell more ads. Traditionally, I think for a lot of podcast networks, that's their approach. You'll see some networks that just seem to add more and more and more shows all the time, and they continue to deviate from their core competency as they add more and more shows. And they do that because they need the inventory positions available to sell to advertisers. Straight up. That's why they do more shows, because they need the inventory ad slots. That system works. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people doing that, and it is essentially what the TV networks do. But I don't necessarily think it's the right way, not for artisan content. I think the best way to go is we focus on a core set of shows that we can do really, really well, and you guys enable us to just keep it a little weird by going over to patreon.com/today, and we drop down from 300. That was a personal milestone of mine that I was really excited to hit. But, people come and go. Things happen. So if you'd like to bump us back up over to 300, or maybe even take us well over 300, patreon.com/today. We have different pledge levels too. And like, for example, yesterday when we had to miss an episode because the recording was lost, first place we went to let people know is our Patreon page. We go there to let them know because those are the people that are keeping us going. And this show is sort of a celebration of the money we raise at patreon.com/today. And my apologies. My stepdad used to come home and he'd always tell us about the deer that he almost got that had the huge antlers or whatever, the huge horns, right? Or the fish that he almost caught that was this big. It was a huge fish on, but it lost it, swallowed the hook. Oh, sure, Dad. Yeah, sure, he had a big fish, sure. And then he brought home the small trout. So I'm not trying to do that when I tell you that I think yesterday was one of our best episodes. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was really devastating to have lost it. So my apologies, and we will be eventually, as the funds on that Patreon page go up, buying equipment, setting it up here in studio so that way we have a recording backup of every show. And then if that happened again, we would go to that backup and release it. And that's in the works, but that takes time, money, and equipment, all of things which we are a little short on right now. So you can help us get there, patreon.com/today. And thank you to all 299 patrons for supporting the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. And because we missed our show yesterday, Angela and I will be recording a bonus Friday edition of Tech Talk Today to make up for yesterday's missed episode. We'll be doing it at 11 a.m. We normally record at 9 a.m. So if you would like to join us for a special Friday edition of Tech Talk Today, go over to jblive.tv at 11 a.m. Pacific. And join Angela and I. We'll have the Mumble Room open, just like always. And we'll record a special Friday edition of Tech Talk Today as sort of a makeup, if you will. Okay, guys, I got one last story. Have you seen, it's just taken off like total craziness. It's kind of great. I mean, I'm often very cynical about social memes that blow up on Twitter, but this pouring buckets of ice over rich people, this has got me going. I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is a huge trend. It's raising awareness for ALS, and what people are doing is taking the ALS challenge and they're getting buckets of ice water dumped over them, and then they challenge somebody else to raise awareness of ALS. If you decide not to have a bucket of water dumped on you, well, then you can donate $100 or something like that. Have you guys seen this yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
I have.
You did.
I
Okay.
have.
What do you think, Eric?
Well, it's kind of started with the NFL doing it at first, and then it's just kind of slowly creeped up into CEOs of different corporations.
Zuckerberg just did it last night.
Yeah, and he challenged Bill Gates.
Yeah, and
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, he challenged Bill Gates and Sarah, whatever, his partner, and that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So, we've been a little hard here on Tech Talk today on Eric's buddy, Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. So I thought maybe we would end today by playing the video of Satya Nadella at Microsoft getting the bucket of water dumped on him, and he was a good sport about it too, because what he did is they had like a bit of a competition at Microsoft to kind of really bring it to the next level, and the department or group or whatever that won the competition were the folks that get to dump the water on Satya Nadella. So we'll wrap up Tech Talk today with this video. It's a great one, and then join us tomorrow for a special Friday edition of Tech Talk Today. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Hi, I'm here because of Steve Gleason's challenge as part of the Ice Bucket Challenge to raise awareness for ALS. And Steve was here for our hackathon, and because of this challenge now, the team that won the hackathon for us, right behind me, is going to get the opportunity to dump a bucket of ice on my head, and hopefully I'll come out okay on that. But the thing that I'm really excited about is what Steve and the team have done to raise awareness for ALS. And I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to contribute not only to raising the awareness, but to the research that can find cures. And no better example than the team behind me that did some fantastic work with the eye gaze technology and how that can give new hope to people with ALS and new cures to ALS, and I'm sort of excited about it. So here you go.
1, 2, 3.
No white flags! Oh my God, that is cool. But now, let me take this opportunity to challenge Jeff Bezos and Larry Page to take their own ice bucket challenge. And let me tell you again, from personal experience, it's better to have your head in the clouds than under a bucket of ice. You guys got wet too.